So welcome everybody. Welcome to this course, English 230, Western World Lit. As you guys already know, my name is Dr. Jeff Yeager. I'm the instructor of the course. I work over at the Wyoming County campus. So I'm a Wyoming County guy originally. I grew up in the county here. Went to Wyoming East High School. So I'm a Wyoming County guy through and through. I live in Beckley now, though, just because I like being near civilization. I can't let go of being close to restaurants and the grocery store. So I'm living in Beckley now. But that is me. Just a little bit about myself. Tell you, it's what I do. So I'm interested in a wide variety of stuff. I did my bachelor's degree in English and history from Concord University. I did my master's in English from Ohio University, and I did my doctorate in English from West Virginia University. So my main specialty as a literature scholar is American Lit. I mostly specialize in American Lit. However, I also have an extreme interest in really old lit from ancient Greece and Rome and medieval. I like a little bit of everything, but I'm especially interested in this literature from ancient Greece and Rome. I'm a very classical scholar in that regard. And when I had to take a foreign language in college, I took Latin. Right, just because I'm really interested in ancient Greece and Rome. Latin's a cool language to learn, even though nobody speaks it anymore. You don't even really learn to speak it when you take it, you just learn to read it. So, I'm very much a nerd when it comes to these subjects of ancient Greece and Rome and all this stuff. This class is going to be a little bit of everything. You're going to get a little bit of everything, all the way up from ancient Greece to the present. So as close to the present as we can get. So we're mostly going to be reading literature from stuff that originally wasn't written in English. So if we talk about like ancient Greek and stuff, right, obviously that wasn't written in English originally. We will read some stuff that was written in English originally, but the vast majority of the stuff will be from ancient Greece and Rome and Italy, Renaissance Italy, France during the Enlightenment period. I don't think I'm giving you any German stuff this semester. But it's mostly Western. We might as well call it Western European Lit. That's pretty much what this class is. You don't read a lot of English or American Lit just because Southern also has classes in that. This is the Western Lit. And there's another course that supplements this one that's offered in the spring semester called Non-Western World Lit. And that class covers everything that's not the Western world. So that mostly covers like East Asia Lit, Japanese Lit, things like that. I don't teach that class because I know nothing about that stuff. Another one of our teachers here at Southern does that one. So, but both classes kind of go hand in hand together. So I'm going to show you our syllabus real quick and we'll walk through it. You guys can, I just posted it like an hour ago. So it's now available for your convenience. We'll do that, then we'll do that. Then we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves, and then we'll talk about reading literature like a scholar. Okay, that's my plan for today. Let's go ahead and look at this. So this is our syllabus. Like I said, I just posted it about an hour ago. So I've already given you guys my name, My email is jeff.yeager@southernwv.edu. So always try to email that one. Also, I told you guys I used to work for WVU. I have my WVU email here too. But you mostly use that one if you ever want to reach me by FaceTime or Skype. Maybe like when a paper is coming up or something, you might want to contact me. Like we'll talk about a draft or something like that. If that's the case, that's the information where you can reach me that way. So if you do contact me that way, though, just let me know ahead of time. That way I don't get a random call in the middle, FaceTime call in the middle of the day from somebody I don't know, right? Just if you do reach out to me that way, schedule an appointment with me first, so I'll know. My office is Wyoming County Campus, room 119. I have a phone number here, 294-2008. That phone number is from my office, but it does pass through to my cell phone. So just in case I'm not in the office, I will get the call. So it forwards the call to my cell phone. Hours that I'm here in the office, 12 to 2 on Mondays, 2 to 5 the rest of the days. I'm not a morning person, so you don't really see me in here in the morning, right? I'm allergic to mornings. Right? They give me great pain and anguish. So hence the fact we're meeting from 6 to 8, right? So that's a little bit of that. Prerequisite to be in the class, you have to complete 102. I did give permission for a couple of people in here to take 102 and this at the same time. Some of you have gotten that permission. For the most part, you have to have 102 to take this. Our textbooks in the class, we have Norton Anthology of World Lit, shorter edition. This is volume 1 with the random dude here. This is volume 2. Okay, volume 1, volume 2. Now, I was talking to some people before class. If you have an edition before the 4th edition, you should be fine. I gave Lauren a copy of the 3rd edition that I had. A couple of other folks in here had the 2nd edition. If you do have another edition, check the reading schedule at the end. Just check to see if everything lines out. Sometimes they cut stuff out and add new stuff, but for the most part, it should be the same. So you should be good to go if you do have an edition before this. You're probably safest going with the 3rd if you want to save a little bit of money, because I doubt much change between the 3rd and the 4th. So you can save a couple of bucks and get an earlier edition if you want, if you look on Amazon or something like that. But if you get the 4th, you're guaranteed to have all the page numbers right. Everything will be there, all that. Okay. There are two other books. I'm making it optional as far as whether you actually buy the book or not, because you can read these online via a PDF, or if you have something like a Kindle or iBooks or something like that, you can read it that way too. So you don't have to buy a physical book for these two. But if you're like me, if you're a person that likes to read more with a physical book, you can also pick these up. And that's John Milton's Paradise Lost and Gustave Flaubeau's Madame Bovary. Paradise Lost and Madame Bovary. Like I said, I will provide readable editions of those to you, but they'll be digital versions that you read on the computer. So you don't have to pay for those if you don't want. But if you prefer a book, you can pick those up. You can get paperbacks of both of those pretty cheap on Amazon. Madame Bovary's like $10 on there. Paradise Lost should be too. So just get a used version and you'll be in good shape, right? If you want to save some money. So the only book you got to have is the anthology. The other two we'll read from, but I'll give you digital versions if money's an issue. Okay. I already explained what the course is. It goes all the way from ancient Greece to the present. So the way the course is going to be graded. Here's the way the course is going to be graded. So you're going to have 2 short papers that are about 3 to 4 pages each. I'm going to give you 3 prompts. And of the 3 prompts, you'll pick 2 through the semester. So maybe you would decide to skip the first one. Well, if you skip the first one, you do the next 2. Maybe I'd give you, maybe you do the first 2. Well, in that case, you wouldn't have to do the one near the end of the semester, right? If you want to do all 3, I would grade the best 2. Okay, so that would be how that works. So 2 short papers, 15% each. You pick 2 or 3 options. There'll be a poetry imitation where you, as we'll find out about midway through the course, we'll read a bunch of sonnets. I'll actually have you guys write a sonnet and follow the rules of sonnets. You know, to write a sonnet, there's a bunch of rules you have to follow. So there'll be an imitation of a sonnet, and that'll be worth 10%. Okay. I won't grade you necessarily based on if your poem's good or bad or not. I'll mostly grade you based on how well you follow the rules of a sonnet. Our discussion, so here's how this class works as far as how I'm divvying up the reading. It's an online class, so I kind of I do have to give you guys some structure to follow week to week as far as how we divvy this stuff up. So I make a distinction here: shorter readings and major readings. The shorter readings are going to be due on Mondays every week. Mondays. If we take a look down here at our calendar, I have it divvied up. So I say Monday shorter readings, Thursday main readings. So the shorter readings every week, you'll read those, and you will do a discussion post on Blackboard for those. So I normally, the way that what I do is I give the shorter stuff, like shorter poems. I might get, when it comes to bigger stuff, I might divide it up into more easily digestible chunks. I'll give you a little chunk on Monday and then a bigger chunk on Thursday. So I kind of try to pace the class pretty well with shorter stuff on Monday, longer stuff on Thursdays. So each week on Monday, as we'll see, our first one coming up next week, you'll read some poems from Sappho and Catullus. Those will be our first readings next week. You'll do those you'll read those, then you'll write a post on the discussion forums. Okay. So I'll give you a prompt for that. I'll show you our Blackboard in a minute, but I'll give you a prompt for that. And then you pretty much just develop an answer off one of the prompts. So for those, about 500 to 750 words or so every week on Mondays. What I'll be looking for those is you give it an informed opinion, and then you quote from the text to support your points. So anytime you write about literature, you always kind of have to quote from the text. So give evidence from the text to back up your point. Give me a couple of quotes to back up whatever it is you argue. Okay. So be specific. That's pretty much what I'm saying. Be specific. So everybody in the class has to do those. Doesn't matter if you're joining on Zoom or not. Everybody in the class has to do the ones on Mondays. Okay. But you also have the Thursday main readings. I say the Thursday main readings. So those will be the bigger, more substantial readings we do every week. And that will be what we talk about here in our Zoom class. Okay, so you have a choice on this one. Some of you guys are here on Zoom already, but you can either join by Zoom, in which case I will grade you based on your attendance and your participation on Zoom. This will be a class, you guys, this will be the only class that I really like to talk a lot. You guys will find out next week. I like to turn the floor over to you guys. I like to run my classes like they're seminars, meaning that we're all sort of equal participants in the class together. So I kind of take a back seat and I become one of you all. We all talk about the lit and share ideas about the lit, argue about the lit, right? That'll be kind of what we do. So that'll be what we do on Thursdays. And if you come to the Zooms, I'll grade you based on how much you participate, pretty much. Not just how much, but also the quality. So maybe you only say one or two things a class, but maybe that's the quality thing that you're saying, right? So I'll kind of grade you based off of that for that 20%. For those of us who can't join by Zoom, I'll give you another discussion board post on that major reading that day. Now, for those who don't join by Zoom, I'm going to require a little bit longer of a discussion post, probably something more akin to like 750 to 1,000 words, just because it'll take more time to discuss that stuff and to develop a well-argued answer. So you have that choice every week about which one you'd rather do. Now, let's say some of you guys in here, you'll be on Zoom the majority of the time. Let's say there's a week where Thursday doesn't work, you can't join. Well, in that case, you can do the discussion post that day. Okay. So I don't want to see you flip-flop every week. I do want to see some consistency as far as which one you're doing more, just because that would be maddening for me to keep up with if you flip-flopped every week. But let's say there's a week here and there you can't do it. The Zoom, well, you can do the discussion post that day. So, but just try to stay consistent with whichever one you do. Okay. And I also, some people are reaching out also saying that expressing interest in another night besides Thursdays. So it also might work out where I do another night too, maybe Tuesdays, where we also do a Zoom. So I'll try, if that does in fact work out, I'll let you guys know so that you can join either night that you want to join. Okay. If you join on Tuesday night though, you'd have to finish the reading a little sooner. That's pretty much the only difference. So every week though, we'll have a shorter reading and a longer reading. You'll always have a discussion post on the shorter readings. The longer readings, you can either do it by Zoom or Blackboard. Okay. Does that make sense? Now, as far as as far as getting something out of the class, I do think you guys who join by Zoom will probably get more out of this class than those who don't. You guys might have had an online class before, right? You guys know how those discussion boards are. Everybody agrees with everybody. It's all nice harmony and rainbows and unicorns, right? The grass really is green, right? So everything, there's not really ever a lot of good discussion on those. It's more of a formality. Students do them just to get them out of the way. That's not really a good substitute for actually talking about the stuff in person. So I'm glad that you guys are all here. You guys who are here should get a lot out of the class. Right? Hopefully those who do the discussions get a lot too. out of it. If nothing else, they'll be able to hear us in our discussions, right? So that's that. There'll be a final exam at the very end of the class, a final exam that'll be worth 20%. That'll be a cumulative exam that covers the entire semester. You guys will take that on Blackboard. Whenever you do the exam, you'll have 2 hours to do it. Don't fear though, I will give a very thorough review of the exam before we do it. I tested this in my summer class that I taught over the summer. Pretty much everybody kicked the final exam's butt. Right? If you keep up with the readings, if you stay on top of things, if you really thoroughly review, you'll get a good grade on the final exam. Okay. So you'll take that on your own time at the very end of the semester. Okay. So you'll have 2 hours to do it. But you won't all have to come to a room and have a proctor look at you and all that. You'll take it at home yourself. I designed the test in a way where it's kind of hard to cheat. Okay. So, frankly, even if you do cheat, whatever, right? That's kind of my philosophy. If you have to resort to that, good for you, right? But you're on the honor code when you do that. I trust that you won't. So that'll be how that'll go. I don't want to grade 40 papers at the very end of the class. That's mostly why I'm giving you an exam instead. Plus, it's a different assessment tool. So papers are a good assessment tool, but I want to assess your knowledge in another way too. So that's why I'm doing the exam. And then 10% is for your engagement in discussions. So especially for those of you who did the Monday discussions, try to respond to at least one peer every time. So when I say engaging, I don't mean that you just go in and say, hey, I agree with you. The sky really was blue in the Iliad, right? That must mean something. What I want to see you guys do as far as engaging with your peers, if you respond to someone, maybe just try to build on what they've said in some way. So you can say, yeah, I read this and this made me think of this. Right? That's one way you can do it. You can, if you disagree with somebody, you can do that, right? Explain why that you find their reasoning problematic. You can do that in a nice way, right? You don't have to say, hey, you're full of shit, right? You can do that in a tactful way, So just do something when you respond to people on Blackboard besides saying, I agree with you. That's mostly what I'm saying here. So that counts for the Monday discussions. As far as the Thursdays, I'll come up with this part of your grade too, based on how much you chime in and participate and all that. So if those of you who are here on Thursdays in the Zoom, you're not expected to respond to those on Blackboard on Thursdays, just so you know. Okay. You're clear at Blackboard on Thursdays if you come to this. So you might as well say this 10% is a participation grade. Right. That's how the course is graded. It's distributed up lots of different things. Not any one thing will hurt you too bad if you don't do well. Okay. Questions about that? About any of this?
I have a question.
Okay.
For the minor readings, like the short ones, will you post them over the weekend for us to read them and then do the discussion, or are you going to post them on Monday morning and then we have all Monday to do it?
I will try to get them up before the weekend. Okay. Yeah, I already have the one for next Monday up for you. Yeah, so I will make a gracious attempt to put them up before the weekend. In case I don't, in case I forget or something, you guys remind me. Send me an email. Hey, get that reading up, right? Just in case I do forget. Yeah, but for the most part, I should have them up. Okay. Then I'm going to try to have stuff up at least a week in advance. So in case some of you guys do want to work early, you can. That includes the Thursday readings too. It's a good question.
So I read some passages from the Iliad earlier online. Is that Monday's read?
No, so that'll be the Iliad will be the week after next. So I'll quickly walk you guys. I redid my calendar from last time that I taught the class. I'm doing some stuff new that I haven't done before. I'm including some authors I haven't done before. I kind of redesigned the class too around this Monday, Thursday thing. So as we see on the calendar, starting next week, our first short readings will be from the poet Sappho and the Roman poet Catullus. So that's already up for you. I'll show you the Blackboard here in a second. We'll read Plato's account of Socrates' death next Thursday, his essay Phaedo. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of Greek philosophy next week. Then the Iliad will be week 3. Okay, the Iliad will be week 3. Some of this, whenever we talk about the Iliad, some of the stuff will be in your book, and some of the stuff I have to put in as a PDF because they cut parts out of it in our book. So if I think a part of it's important that you need to read, I include that as extra. So you would read part of it in your book and part of it online. Okay. I really want to find a better book for this class than the one we have, just because there's so much of the book that we do have is like Asian lit and stuff, and that's not even what our class does. So I want to hopefully I'll find a better book eventually. Week 4 we'll read something from the philosopher Aristotle for a short reading. We'll read 2 plays for our long reading, Oedipus and Medea. For the short reading on the following Monday, you'll read a Greek comedy, Lysistrata. Then we'll close out the Greeks and the Romans with Virgil's Aeneid. Just to scroll down, just to show you guys what kind of titles we're going to keep reading. Whenever we start medieval lit, we'll read parts of St. Augustine's Confessions. That's a very famous Christian book, right? St. Augustine's Confessions. St. Augustine was a Catholic priest. His Confessions is about his journey from being like a wretched sinner, right, to being a person of faith. It's a great book. You'll read some selections from that. We'll read a big selection from Dante's Inferno. Dante's Inferno. You guys know Dante's Inferno. It's the famous story where Dante goes to hell, right? He describes various parts of hell. Hell's divided up into different parts, right? So for different types of people, for different types of sinners. It's always a big hit with students. Students love Dante's Inferno. So we'll read a good chunk of that for our main reading that week. I don't give you the whole thing just because it gets kind of repetitive after a while, but I give you a good chunk of it and then the end of it. Okay. And then if you want to read the stuff in between, you can. For the following week after that, we'll do Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. So we'll read the prologue of it for our short reading. We'll read the Wipe of Baths, Prologue, and Tale for our long reading that week. Week 8, we'll do William Shakespeare's Hamlet, Acts 1 and 2 on the Monday for the short read, Acts 3 to 5 for the long read. Week 9, I'll give you a break, and I won't give you a Monday post that week. You'll be working on an essay around then. This week, I'll give you some short poems to read for the long class. Week 10 and 11, we're going to read different parts of Paradise Lost. Book 1 on the Monday, book 2 and 4 on the Thursday, book 9 on the week after that, book 10 in the longer class. So I'm dividing that up into 2 weeks. Milton, this will be the most challenging thing you read in here this semester. Milton's a little bit of a tough read, but my students you guys will find it's an interesting read. It's Milton retelling the Genesis story of Adam and Eve, right? And also the fall of Satan from heaven. So that story is one that this story is one that pretty much retells that whole story to an English audience. Right? As you guys will find out, if you guys especially are interested in Christianity, there's lots of stuff that's in Paradise Lost that isn't in the Bible that we take for granted as being part of Christianity today. So, if you're interested in Christian stuff at all, Paradise Lost will be an interesting read for you. Even if you're like a hardcore atheist, right? Paradise Lost will be an interesting read for you too, right? And Lauren, it should be an interesting read for you because we read Frankenstein last semester, right? Remember what the creature reads in Frankenstein, right? He reads Paradise Lost. Now everything will come full circle for you. Week 12, we will start with volume 2 of the book. We'll read a couple of satirical type of works. One's called Tartuffe from Moliere. The other one's called Candide by Voltaire, 2 famous French writers. Week 13, we'll read some short poems from the Romantic poets. Then, right up to Thanksgiving break, we'll read Madame Bovary. So we'll divide Madame Bovary up into 3 chunks. The book is actually divided into 3 chunks naturally. So we'll read part 1, part 2, part 3, different days. And we'll talk about part 1 and part 2 and 3 together when we get to our Zoom. In our very last week of class, we'll read some poems on Monday. And then on Thursday, we'll read 2 short stories. That'll be how we'll close out the class. There's not too much recent stuff on here. This is mostly, it's kind of a hard task to cover 3,500 years of literature in one semester, right? So I did my best to make everything equal. Okay. Well, it's a fair amount of reading, but hopefully dividing it up into chunks across 2 different days of the week will help you guys stay on track. I've tried it before where I just say read all this in a week on your own time. And I found that doesn't work. Students get behind on the reading that way. So if I make it as much like a normal class as possible, where you have to read it by a certain day, you guys will stay on track that way. At least I think so. That's the reading schedule. This is up on Blackboard for you, so you have a copy. Definitely keep this close by and follow it. That way you know what we're reading that day. Okay. Other questions, comments, concerns before I move on to show you the Blackboard? Okay, so I'll go ahead and show you the Blackboard. Once I do that, we'll go around round table where you guys can introduce yourselves. Okay, well, let's look at the Blackboard real quick. So on our Blackboard, when you click into our page, the very first thing that you will see is announcements. So anytime I update the class, maybe I add something to the class, maybe I change a due date or something, right? If I make an announcement to the class, it'll be posted right here. This will be the very first thing you see. As you guys probably have already seen that because I've sent the Zoom link out this way. So anytime an announcement's up, it'll be here. Our syllabus. So I post the link to the Zoom here. So you can also get into the Zoom this way if you just click that. If you click syllabus and schedule, you guys will find the syllabus. The syllabus I just showed you is right here. English 230 syllabus and reading schedule. I have another folder up too. The school technically wants to give us 3 parts of the syllabus now. I don't know if you guys have run into that in your other classes, like where you get my actual syllabus is technically part 2 of the syllabus. Part 1 is a general standardized syllabus that applies to all English 230 classes. Right? I'm the only one who teaches it here. But that's technically supposed to be a syllabus for no matter who teaches it. And there's also this educational thing that shows you the goals of the course and how it's all mapped out. That's stuff that students would not read. I know you guys probably won't read that, right? But it's stuff that they want us to include. So rather than give you a 50-page syllabus, right, I just put those parts here for you in case you want to read them. They're there for you. Okay. And rather than give you a 50-page document, I just included it as extra here. But everything relating to our reading schedule and how the class is graded and all that, that's right here. Okay, so that's really the only thing you have to read. Everything else is there for you in case you want it. As far as the class goes, pretty much everything will be under where it says click here, modules and course content. Click here, right? I can't be more direct than that. Click here. Right? So if we click here, you guys see how this works. At the very top, I'll give you a template for your essays. So whenever you do an essay, if you save this template to your computer and just plug your name into it, you'll have your MLA formatting done right already. So I give that to you as an extra. That way I don't constantly have to write, format your paper correctly, right? It's already done for you that way. You guys have probably already familiarized yourself with the week 1 module. The syllabus is up here now for you too. So if you click this, I will take you back to where we were before. It links you over. Your introduction post that you've probably already done. If you haven't done that yet, do so. Okay. I'll actually count that towards your Monday discussion posts. Then I have a video up, critical approaches for reading literature. You guys probably won't have to watch that one because I'm going to kind of go over that again here in a moment. So you guys probably won't have to watch that one since you're here. Then I need to move that up. Then this will be the handout that I go over. So the handout that I'll go over in a second is already on here for you. But then as we see for starting next week's when we actually start getting into content. So you guys can't see this stuff yet, because I haven't made it available to you. I have to organize it and get it ready for you. But I've got the folder up for next week already. So anytime you click these, the very first thing you'll see is instructions. It says, here's what you read on this day. Here's what you read on this day. So I pretty much just copy over from the syllabus and make it available to you again here. So you get the same information twice pretty much. Here's what you read on this day. Here's what you read on this day. I have a video up here that introduces you to ancient Greek lit. I probably won't have time to cover that today in this Zoom. So I'll do a little bit of that next week, but if you want to watch that and kind of get a feel for ancient Greek lit and what was going on historically with ancient Greece, why is ancient Greece important to Western culture, right? All that's there. And that video, I mostly talk the whole time. There's not really a lot of stuff I show. So that would be a good video to watch, to listen to if you like do the dishes or clean or something, right? Just want some noise. That would be a good time to consume that video when you're doing something else, right? If you just want some background noise. Even if you like want to listen to it while you're in the car or something, right? That would be a good time to listen to that, because I don't really talk a lot unless you just like to see my beautiful face, right? Right. Other than that, that's the only reason why you would actually need to watch it. Otherwise, you could listen to it. But so I have stuff up for week 2, August 23rd to 27. As you see, I'll divide in these modules. I'll divide them up into weeks every week, so depending on what we're reading. So it should be easy to access. It should be organized pretty well. So if you click this, if there's a reading that's not in our book, say for instance, Catullus, you'll click that and it'll take you to it. It gives you a web link. Okay, it either gives you a web link or it's something that you save to your computer and read that way. So when you click Catullus, it'll take you to a web link. When you click Plato, it'll take you to a PDF that you'll download on your computer. Then I have the questions up for that first discussion post for next Monday up already for you here. So here's the questions. So you pick one, whichever one you're most interested in doing. You pick one, then you click this. Then it'll be just like how you did with your first day post. You'll create a thread, type out your answer, submit it. Okay. So it links you over to the discussion board in the folder here. It links you over. So you don't have to click 3 or 4 times to get over to that. It'll take you to it automatically.
Okay, so out of those 3 questions, we just have to pick one.
That's right.
And that's every week. Is that for the Monday and Thursday too? Like for the both discussions, would you only pick one of them on Thursday post?
So you have to do it on Monday, but if you're here on Zoom on Thursday, you don't have to do it on Thursday.
I know. I'm saying like on Thursday though, if we miss the Zoom, would there be 3 questions too, and you pick one, or would you do all 3?
Yeah, you would just pick one.
Okay.
Right. Sometimes I'll give you like 7 or 8 questions. Sometimes I'll just give you a couple. Depends how many questions I can think up, honestly. All right. So if I come up, okay.
If you know how sometimes like you're trying to look for like you answer the question and instead of just going on and on with filler, could you answer a part of another question to get your 1,000 words? Would that be okay? Or
Yeah.
however?
Yeah, you can blend the questions together if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The Mondays are a little shorter. Remember, I said those are about 500 to 700 words or so.
Okay.
Yeah, the Thursdays are 750 to 1,000.
But as long as we attend this, we don't have to do the Thursday, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Much easier to attend this. I did that on purpose, by the way. I made the other option sound so horrible that you guys would do this. So that's by design. I'll frankly admit it. So that's how this is organized. I haven't put questions up for the Plato reading yet because I need to reread it myself. So I'm going to try to do that probably tomorrow. So I should have questions up for next Thursday by the weekend. But if you guys are here anyway, you won't have to worry about it. Okay. So that'll be how it's organized every week. And then once we move to that'll be the ancient Greek and Roman unit. Once we move to medieval, it'll be a different folder. Once we move to Paradise Lost and Renaissance, that'll be another folder. Right. So that's how it works. It's pretty well organized. I'd like to think that it's well organized. Sometimes people complain on my teacher evaluations that I don't organize this stuff well. I'm just like, well, how could it be any more clear than I'm making it? Right. So I say that, but if anything here doesn't make sense, tell me. That's the only way I know if it does make sense is if you guys tell me. You guys feel good about how this works? Or is there something here that's confusing?
When we get started, like actually into the class, are you going to do like most other people do? And what says like items due whenever you click on Blackboard? Are you going to post the stuff in there too? That's how I usually figure out what I got to do every week.
Well, so whenever you click this in the module here, the very first thing you see is what you need to do. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I write out instructions every week. Here's what you do for each week. So that's the very first thing you'll see here. But you have to go into the module to see that. See what I mean?
Yeah. Well, some of my classes, the teachers post everything that's due in one whole thing right there, so you know what to do every week, and it just kind of disappears after you do it.
So like they put it in a calendar or something. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I can never find it on my computer. I find it all the time on my cell phone though. And as soon as I put Blackboard and click on a class, it's sitting right there. And after I complete it, it disappears. It's marked off that I've done it for the week.
I think what would be easier so it doesn't get so confusing because like that's each individual week on there. So just do it like for week 2, put what you need for week 2 instead of for every single week on every one of them. So it's not confusing.
So you're saying to copy and paste these and put it in like the week 2 folder.
Yes.
That would be a lot more easier.
I can do that. That's a good suggestion. I appreciate that. I can do that. All right. I'll do that right now. So I don't
Sounds good. And that just makes it easier for everybody to know what to do.
It doesn't hurt to post things 3 or 4 times, right? Just so that you can find it easy. All right. I think who was saying that a second ago about finding it and you check it off? Who was saying that?
Me.
Tell me your name.
Jesse's probably what it has, but Austin. What I go by.
Yeah, so I'll look around. I think you got to post it into a calendar or something. I'll try to do that too. I'll look around and see how you do that. That's a feature.
Okay,
that's a feature I just didn't know about. So,
Well, I had it in all my electrical classes, and I know I've got 7 classes this semester, and 2 of them's got it.
okay.
So I don't know if it's just something that certain teachers do or what, but everything's usually a lot easier like that.
All right, I'll look into that. Other questions or suggestions? I'm always open for suggestions. So any other things, anything else here that I can address? So just a couple of other places, points of interest here to look to. Whenever a big paper is due, you would click major essay prompts and assignment drop boxes. As you see, nothing's here yet, just because it's going to be a while before a paper's due. But whenever I introduce a paper with a prompt, I'll put the prompt here, and then I'll put the drop box to the paper here too. So you'll come to this screen to submit your papers. I'll also put a link to it in the module too, just so it's in 2 places for you. But when a paper's due, this will be where you go. Some of the videos that are in the modules, they're posted here as well, just so they're posted in a couple of different places. I say the readings that aren't from the text are here too, but I also put the readings up in the modules too. So again, I post stuff in 2 places, so you should be able to find it. So that's really the only other points of interest on our Blackboard page that you need. I disable the messages feature on my Blackboard courses because if you need to contact me or ask me a question, just email me. That's the easiest way. So I've had people use these Blackboard messages before, and then maybe I go 2 or 3 days without checking the Blackboard. And then I see an old message there. I'm like, well, crap, right? I suck. So that's why I make you email me instead. Just because I don't look in all these places every single day. So if you have a question, ever ask me, just drop me an email. Okay. Some teachers prefer the messages thing on here, but not me. Not me. All right. Anything else on regarding this? All right, so let's take before I keep talking more, let's take a minute where all of you got introduce yourselves. This is a class where we should all hopefully get to know each other. We'll share ideas and all that stuff. By the end of the semester, we should all know each other pretty well. So let me see if I can do it this way. View the gallery. So now we see everybody here. So maybe say hello, tell us who you are, where you're from, what are you majoring in here at Southern, where do you, if you're planning to go to a 4-year college, maybe where are you planning on going? All right, so tell me about you, and it not just school stuff. You can tell us what you're interested in, what kind of stuff you do for fun. All right, so tell us however much you want us to know. All right, so we'll start with you up there at the top. Sherry, tell us about yourself.
My name is Sherry May. I live in Oxford, West Virginia. I have 2 children, both adults out on their own, 2 grandchildren. I work at Crossroads Recovery Home for Women who suffer with SUD. And I like to craft. That's really about all there is about me. I'm working on my associate's degree, and I would like to major in psychology eventually.
Psychology, very cool.
Yes.
Yeah, you should be able to find that there's lots of places in this class where psychology really becomes a helpful tool for you to use. Especially when we pick up these characters and stuff.
The ladies that I work with, we have difficulty finding counselors and psychologists for them to talk to. So I thought, well, maybe I can just become one. Kill
That's
two
a-
birds, one stone.
That's awesome. Did you say you work again?
At Crossroads Recovery Home for Women
Where's that at?
in Gilbert, West Virginia.
Gilbert? Very, very cool. Very cool.
We've been open for 20 years.
Yeah, I have a close friend who just had to go to a recovery home like that. So you guys do good work.
Thank you. We try.
So next up, I don't know if it's Kira or Kyra, however you pronounce it. Tell us about.
It's Kyra. You can call
Kyra?
me whatever. I don't care. My name's Kyra Yates. I'm 22. I'll be 23 the 31st of this month. I'm a part-time waitress at Chiefs. I don't know if any of y'all's ever ate there, or I might have waited on some of y'all. But I'm actually trying to be a counselor, so maybe you'll have me a job set up, Sherry. But I'll be wrapping up my associate's degree this fall, and hopefully next fall I'll be getting into the Lindsey Wilson program. So
Very cool. I like Chiefs. It's a great place.
was I ever your waitress? Did I do a good job?
I haven't been there too often just because I live in Beckley, but the few times I have been, I really liked it. So. And Sherry, are you in that Lindsey Wilson program too? Or planning to go to it?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people take this class who go to Lindsey Wilson. So that's why I asked. Very good. Well, welcome,
We're in
Kyra.
that class.
That's you guys are doing that.
Yes.
Very cool. Hey, Stacy.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Stacy Bell. I am 36. I have two boys, Ryan and Evan. And I work full-time. I'm the director of a community center in Chapmanville, West Virginia. And I deal a lot with seniors 60 and older, providing meals, activities, things like that at the community center with them. Between starting back to school in the summer and work, and my mom was recently diagnosed with T-cell lymphoma, so she's been really sick the last few months. So between all of that, I don't have a lot of extra time to do many things because it's quite hectic right now. But normally I like to, we're homebodies. I like to be home. I'm a youth leader at church. That's kind of taking the back seat because of everything else that's going on. But I love to deal with kids. I had started going to college right after high school, and I was about a year into my associate's degree, and then I switched and I started a medical assistant program with full body EKG and all that. So I did that and I actually worked for about 8 years. Then I was a stay-at-home mom, and now I'm doing the director at a community center. And so I'm starting back to finish my associate's degree in arts, and I plan to go on to become a teacher.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, so you got your hand in a bunch of different baskets there.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Very, very nice. Very nice. I'm glad it's good that you do so much community service and stuff. Our communities certainly need it.
Yeah, they're a fun group of people. We have Monday through Friday, which, obviously with COVID, there was, we still would provide their meals. They would just kind of pull in. They wouldn't actually come into the center. We would just bag them up so everybody could still get their meal. But the majority of the seniors that come to my center, they really need the socialization and the interaction. They don't necessarily need the food. So we usually, we try to provide different activities, different fun things for them. And a lot of them are widows, or they have, different illnesses, or, their kids live away, or grandkids. So a lot of them are alone and kind of by themselves. So, but it's pretty rewarding. It's like having a job with like 20 different grandparents. And, you get hugs every day. They bring you your favorite stuff and everything like that. So it is really rewarding.
Very nice. Next up, we got, tell me how to pronounce your name. Is it Alia?
It's my name's Aaliyah.
Aaliyah.
I'm 22 and I'm from Gilbert, West Virginia. And I'm majoring in psychology. I hope to start the Lindsey Wilson program in the spring. This is my third year at Southern. I actually went in 2017, 2018, and then I took 2 years off. And last fall was my first semester back. And I don't do much in my free time. I like to read a lot. I do a lot of writing, kayaking, stuff like that. But that's about it.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I like to do outdoorsy stuff like that too. I'm not just a nerd who sits inside all day. Right? So Gilbert is a place that's close to me too. My best friend in the world was from Gilbert. You guys know that restaurant there that used to be Wally's? It doesn't exist anymore. Right?
Yeah, my boyfriend actually, he's from Mullins and he went to Wyoming. So when you said that, like, I know where you're from and stuff because I've been there a lot.
Right. Yeah, for those of you who are from Mingo County in here, I just got married. I married a girl from Mingo County, so yeah, she taught at Mate One last year, so that's where she's from. So yeah, it's a big region, but a small at the same time, right? Next up, we got Keely and Nicole here.
Okay, I'll go first. My name is Keely. This is my sister, Nicole. And we attend the Lindsey Wilson program. We are just about ready to graduate with our bachelor's in it's counseling, human services and counseling. And then we will go on to further our education in that field of, we'll go for a master's in psychology, and hopefully we'll specialize in registered play therapy with kids is our goal. That's our dream job. And I have two boys, one's 5 and one's 10. And we do a lot of outdoor, we have a camp in Hinton, West Virginia. And we're there just about every other weekend or something like that. So we do a lot of outdoor stuff, and I'm just super glad to be ready to graduate. And but now we have to come back to Southern. We done 2 years at Southern prior to attending Lindsey. So we're just ready we skipped the associate's degree. So we never got no kind of degree, and we went on for our bachelor's. So we're just super excited, ready to have a diploma in our hands. Show we've done something for all this time.
What type of job are you guys looking for after you finish your psychology degrees?
Well, we're hoping to work with kids, but really pretty much whatever we can get.
It's called
Right.
registered play therapist, and that's what we really want to do. We did a practicum at a play therapy place, and
yeah,
it was awesome.
It stole our heart.
Yeah.
Like, we fell in love with the kids and just everything that they do for them. And the kids have been through hell and back, but it's like you're going to stand up for them and be a advocacy for them.
I originally started this going to do like rehabilitation
Yeah.
or something. And yeah, play therapy stole my heart.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
And we've been in this together every step of the way. So everybody knows us as the sisters. So
It's cool that you guys are taking the class together. That's always fun.
yeah.
Well, I'm Nicole. I'll be 39 my birthday, and I have two daughters, a 19-year-old and a 4-year-old. So and between school and practicum, and I work a few days a week, I don't have time for myself.
Right. That's busy all the time.
Yes, very.
That's welcome, guys. I'm glad to have you in this class.
Thank you. We're excited. I was freaking out whenever we first started here. You said this is 2:30, and I was thinking that we needed to be in 2:31. So, but we're good in your class. So we're super excited about it. They told us that 2:31 was kind of pretty hard, and the teachers were not so great. So we've kind of took a liking to you already.
Well, good. Yeah, they wanted me to teach that class, but I told them no. I just don't know enough about it to do that one. So very, very good. I think for that program, you pick either one, 230 or 231.
Yeah.
So those are good. All right, Lauren.
Hi, my name's Lauren Thomas. I'm 19. I'm from Wyoming County. I went to Westside High School, not East. I'm majoring in associates in arts so I can become a teacher. I like to go fishing and kayaking most of the time. I also like to read whenever I have time to.
Lauren's the only one in here who's suffered through a course with me already. And she came back, so she knows the beating she's getting ready to endure already. And she's taking it very stoically, though. Right. Very good. Welcome, Lauren. I'm glad to have you again. Where it says iPhone, who are you? What's your name?
Is it iPhone 4?
Yep.
Oh, okay. My name's Timmy Doty. I graduated from Man High School in 2005, and I went to college up till 2009 and stopped attending to go to work and start a family. I've got two boys who are 9 and 8 and a little girl that's 4. And throughout the day, I work as a full-time employee with the Logan County Board of Education till 2:30, and then I come home and take my classes and watch all 3 of my kids. Or my wife left 2 months ago, so I've got all 3 kids to myself for now.
You're a very busy man between work and
no free time.
Right. Glad to have you in here. Glad you're joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Alexis.
My name's Alexis Rainwater. I'm from Logan. I'm 18 years old, and I plan on becoming a teacher.
What kind of teacher?
An elementary teacher.
Elementary. Very good, very good. That's what my wife does. She's an elementary teacher. Special ed. She does special ed. Welcome. So tell me how to pronounce your name. Is it Kashina?
Kashina, yes.
Very good.
My name is Kashina Rouse. I'm from Belfry, Kentucky. I just turned 28 on Tuesday. This is my last semester at Southern, and then I plan to go to Marshall for teaching. I love to travel, hike, work out. We actually just got back from Hawaii like a month ago. And I'm actually going to be a mom in December.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What type of teacher are you thinking about being?
Elementary.
Elementary. Good. Man, we got people with similar interests between teaching and psychology work here. So very, very interesting. Austin.
This is my last semester at Southern. I was going for electrical technical engineering, but I ended up getting accepted out in Beckley for the lineman school, and I'm working on getting my CDLs right now. But I only had 7 classes left to finish up to get my associates in arts, so I went ahead and took 7 classes this semester and hopefully finish it up. Graduated from Westside High School in 2020. I don't really do much of my free time. I try to race dirt track when I can, but my car is getting rebuilt right now.
What'd you say your last name was, Austin?
Gibson.
Gibson. Welcome. Yeah, it's what school in Beckley are you doing a lineman program through?
New River.
New River. Very cool. Yeah, you make good money doing that. That's a good choice.
Yeah, after I finished the course, they send you out of state for 5 months and guaranteed a job. So
Cool. 2 Wyoming County guys here as well. So. Do you and Lauren know one another? I guess you went to Westside about the same time.
She graduated a year before me.
Did she?
Yeah. I'm pretty positive she did. I don't think we graduated together. Didn't have no class with if we did.
Very, very cool. You know, sometimes classes know each other, or different ones, sometimes not. Last but not least, we got Shanika Bailey.
It's Shanika.
Shanika, okay.
Well, I'm 30 years old and I have 4 kids. Well, I'm in the process of adopting our 4th one, which is our biological nephew. I'm very busy. All 3 of my older kids are in sports, and right now, if you hear clapping, I'm sorry, but I'm at a cheer camp. I'm a cheer coach for Buddy League cheerleaders. I also teach full time, but I'm going to school right now to become an official teacher. I teach at a Christian school. Mm-hmm. I was going to college in Mountain West in Huntington to be in their PTA program. But like I said, our 4th child that kind of landed in our lap kind of made me take a new direction in life. I love kids, and I'm just kind of excited to graduate in December with my AA degree, and I guess that's about it.
Well, welcome to the class. Glad to have you. There's lots of parents in here, right? All of you are very busy people, right? So I appreciate you guys taking the time to join us. Very, very nice. It seems like we got a good group here. So I'm very much looking forward to it. There is one last thing I want to do today to kind of give you guys an introduction to the course. So bear with me for this next little spiel. This spiel I'm getting ready to give you, it's pretty much, I'll go back to speaker view here, but it's pretty much giving you guys a little bit of a tool set for thinking about literature. So there's lots of different ways that we can read and analyze literature. And I'm basically giving you the quick tutorial on different ways you can think about literature. All of you guys will, some of you guys will gravitate to one or 2 of these more than the other. That applies to me too, as you'll find out. Some of you guys I already know where some of you guys will kind of, where your mind will kind of go. just based on what we just talked about with your introductions. So let me share this handout with you. Pull it up real quick. One moment. Okay, here it is. So I do this at the very beginning of all of my literature classes. I do it for my movie class as well. Different ways you can think about literature, different perspectives, different schools of thought. And I'll give you guys a brief introduction to each one, kind of talk you through it. You guys will, by the end, I'm sure I'll ask you guys the question, which one do you think you gravitate to? I guarantee you some of you guys will gravitate towards one or the other. But literature is a very broad discipline. That's something I want to say. It's a very broad discipline. There's lots of people in the literature field that are interested in different things. So it's not just time periods or nationalities. Usually whenever you have an English professor in literature, they specialize in something. So I've already told you guys I specialize in American lit before the Civil War. But lots of times they specialize in something, but oftentimes it's not just a time period, but also one of these schools of thought too. So I'll just give you the brief spark notes as far as like each one of these and what type of work is done, what types of papers are done, what types of ideas are.
Just in case you said I was setting poop. The poop, I didn't realize that was poop in front of me.
Somebody say something? Okay. So you guys feel free to interrupt me anytime when I'm doing this. If you have a question or something I'm saying is not making sense. Okay. So the first one up is called the biographical approach to studying lit. The biographical approach. Whenever you do the biographical approach, you make the author the main stuff. So we're talking about art here. So how do you appreciate art? Literature is a form of art. So you make the author the main concern and use the text to illustrate some argument about the author. I say we're not going to read Edgar Allan Poe in here, but I bring him up on this handout because lots of times students are interested in Edgar Allan Poe. You know, students know he suffered with stuff like alcoholism and depression and things like that. So like, let's say when you read an Edgar Allan Poe story, you might think about, well, how much did whatever was happening in his life influence his creation of this story? So you take the author as your main focal point and then sort of ask yourself, well, what was going on with the author to make the author create this art? That's pretty much what a biographical approach is. Some of in this class, some of the authors will be able to do that more than others. I know when we talked about Homer in a week or two, the so-called writer of the Iliad and the Odyssey, Homer probably wasn't even a real guy. It's just, that was just a name given to a supposed author. Right? Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey come from like a verbal storytelling tradition. So in that case, we don't even know who the author is, if Homer was actually a guy. When we read something like Paradise Lost by John Milton, we know a lot about John Milton's life. he was involved in English politics and things like this. So there'll be times where we talk about that, where I'll talk about what Milton was doing, right? How whatever Milton was doing might have shaped his creation of his Satan, of his version of Satan, for instance. So sometimes the author is important and might come up. Sometimes we don't even know who the heck the author is in this class. So Shakespeare is another interesting example here. Some people think Shakespeare wasn't actually a real guy. They think, so the conspiracy theory about Shakespeare is some people think, people ask themselves, how could, Shakespeare was a middle-class guy. He's kind of like all of us, right? He grew up in a very blue-collar background. Lots of snooty professors like to argue, how could a middle-class guy write something like Hamlet, which is a timeless piece of literature, right? How could somebody like that write something like that? So lots of people think that it was actually some rich guy using William Shakespeare as a pen name, right? I don't have any polite words to say for what I think about that theory, right? But some people do think that. So again, the author, taking the author as your main point of study. This next one might be something some of you guys in here who are doing counseling and maybe even like elementary ed or something might be interested in. This is looking at a text from a standpoint of disability. So if you look at a piece of literature from a standpoint of disability, you ask yourself, well, what type of message is this text saying about maybe a disabled person and their bodies, maybe, or their minds, right? How does this text represent someone who is disabled? Because you guys know that in different time periods, right, they were more sensitive or not to that type of thing. So disability studies is kind of historical in a way. But you always kind of have to ask yourself, well, what's a text doing with disability? Is it maybe demonizing these disabled characters? Right? Is it mocking them or poking fun at them? Or is the text maybe doing something interesting or progressive with a disabled character? So I can't think of, this will come up in here, especially when we talk about like the Greeks and stuff, Greeks and Romans. So if you notice something like this happening where a character might be disabled or have some type of bodily deformity or something like that, ask yourself, what's going on with this? What's the meaning of this? Is this text saying something? Is this text even maybe creating some of these stereotypes that we might have about the disabled? Right, so that's pretty much what disability studies is. If you took this class 10 years ago and you said disability studies, nobody would know what the heck you're talking about. This is actually a really recent school of thought that's just came up in English studies over the last 10 years or so. So if some of you guys are interested in that type of thing, this is definitely a good way to read lit. I know last semester, Lauren took 102 with me, right? We talked about Frankenstein, the creature's disabilities in that. So that definitely came up in reading Frankenstein. These schools of thoughts are kind of political in a way. Reading literature is kind of a political act in a way sometimes. So as you'll see, some of these are kind of have an advocacy spiel to them. Disability is definitely one, because you want to make sure that we have better ways of thinking about the disabled. The next one up is called ecological studies. This is when you look at literature and the environment together, literature and the environment. So especially something like nature. So how does the text treat nature? Is nature a nice, beautiful, vibrant place that characters go to relax? Or is it a dangerous place, a wilderness? Right? That's meant where nature comes into conflict with the characters. So whatever a text is doing with nature, it's the same type of thing. So what types of ways do we look at nature as people in the Western world? Right? How do we look at nature? How do we perceive nature? How do these literary texts maybe influence how we do perceive nature? Even from a religious point of view, we perceive nature in certain ways, right? Christians, like when God gave Adam, the rule over nature, God told Adam that he would be the steward over nature, right? Well, being a steward means something. It means man pretty much supervises over nature. It's up to man to create nature in the way that he wants. If you go to like East Asia, right? Some of those East Asian cultures, you're more part of nature. God is even within nature in some of these East Asian cultures. Different cultures throughout the world have different relationships with nature. So we live in an area where nature is important to all of us, right? This is a beautiful place that we do live in. But oftentimes with ecological studies, it's meant to maybe even show us how can we treat nature better today. So if they did make mistakes in the past, how can we better think about how to handle nature today? So that's oftentimes the bend of ecological studies. Again, this is one that's been talked a lot about in the last 10 or 15 years. This is a very trendy way of reading lit right now. But it is an interesting subject. How is nature treated in these texts? What does that suggest about how we perceive nature? So if you notice anything going on with nature, hone in on it, think about it. What's going on? A formal study of a literature text. This is when you look at all these different buzzwords about reading literature. So this kind of is almost like a high school way of looking at literature. Right? You might be interested in something like the imagery that's going on. You might be interested in something like the word choice. Whenever we talk about poems, right, you might be interested in how the poem rhymes or what the poem's meter is. You guys, as I said a minute ago, you guys will actually have to write a poem following some of these formal rules. So when you do a formal study of literature, you pretty much pick the literature apart using literature terms, right? Setting, character, word choice, themes. Right, all these different irony, right? Is a text ironic? Right. So all these different words that we use to pick apart literature, that's a formal study. So you're not bringing anything else into it necessarily. You're just looking at the literature as it is and looking at what makes it stand out. Gender and race. This will be something that'll be interesting to talk about in this class. I know gender comes up a lot. So different types of groups of people, how are they represented in this class? Like how, for instance, are women represented in this class? This is a class that's most of what we're reading is the dead old white guy authors, right? That's kind of what this class is, the dead old white guy authors, right? I wish it was a more diverse class than this, but that's what Western world lit is, right? It's mostly the thinkers who helped shape the Western world, right? Well, most of the writing we have is from dead old white guys. So what types of attitudes about women are some of these texts projecting? Are some of these women demonized in a way? I know when we talk about Paradise Lost, we'll talk about Eve. Right? Well, Eve gets blamed for everything, right? Right. So what's going on with women in these texts? There's ways of thinking about sexuality in these texts too. Often, as far as like the term gay goes, there really wasn't an identity marker saying someone is gay up until the 19th century. So the 1800s is when that identity, I either like one gender, if you're a homosexual person, that's when people actually started identifying as that. Before, it was thought more of as like an act or a sin or something. In ancient Greece and Rome, it was widely accepted, especially with men. Oftentimes these powerful people, like Julius Caesar is a good example. Oftentimes these powerful people, especially men, if you were like an older man in your 40s or something, you would take a younger boy as your protege, and they would have relationships like that. Right? That was a common thing in ancient Greece and Rome. So how does a text look at a different types of sexuality other than straight sexuality? Right? How does it look at it? It's called queer studies of literature. It takes that word queer, which is a very nasty term, right? Usually when you hear someone call someone a queer, right? That's a nasty term. But they take that, but people who read literature in this way take that term and try to make it into something positive. Right? So that's why it's called the queer study of literature. You might notice a character in one of these stories that seems, maybe there's some tension going on or something like that, right? So you might notice this stuff, especially in ancient Greek lit, you'll see it. Achilles and Patroclus have a very close relationship, which isn't quite friendship, right? It's something a little deeper than that. So you guys will be surprised how different the ancient Greeks and Romans were compared to us as far as being accepting of this type of thing. And then race. How does a piece of literature treat race, right? So lots of different races you might think of, like how does a British text, for instance, might view like people from India in a certain way because the British colonized India. American texts are definitely interested with African Americans, right, because of slavery. How are different races treated, and what types of attitudes about these races are these texts portraying? So gender and race, I kind of lump them together because they all handle these different identity markers the same way. The influence intertextual study, if you look at that, you think about how does one author shape another, right? So did Milton read Shakespeare, right? If so, how did that shape a character in Paradise Lost? So you kind of have to ask yourself, how did one text maybe influence another text? That's what an influence study does. Okay. Sometimes to do a good one of those, you might have to prove sometimes, hey, this author actually did read this author. But we might ask that question several times. Well, do you think Shakespeare influenced Milton? Or do you think Chaucer influenced Shakespeare? Right? These will be questions we'll ask the further we go into the course. Well, it's a class on Western World Lit, so all these works are foundational works. Right? So these are some of the best things that have ever been written, arguably. Right, so you can definitely make the case that any one of these can probably influence the other. The psychological approach, I figure many of you will be interested in this, just based on what you just discussed. But the psychological approach oftentimes looks at characters. Oftentimes you'll try to break down these characters' psychological states, right? So what type of anxieties do these characters have? What sorts of traumas do they might have? What sort of deep-seated fears do these characters have? What makes these characters tick? Oftentimes, you can also kind of psychoanalyze society as a whole based off of the work as well. So this, I should point out that this approach is very much influenced by the psychologists Sigmund Freud and Jacques Lacan. For you psychology majors in here, I'm sure you guys have heard Sigmund Freud's name before. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
When did you encounter Freud in like Psychology 101, or have you talked about him in depth? Any of you guys know where you've heard his name before?
We pretty much, that's all we do is study their theories and their techniques and stuff like.
What was the question? Where did we hear what?
Yeah, where have you heard his name before? What type of class?
Psychology, but anything to do with sex and psychology is Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He done birth. No, he didn't do birth order. My bad. I should know that.
Yeah, it's just to give a quick synopsis of Sigmund Freud. We're actually reading the story in here, Oedipus the King. I'll wait before I give the synopsis. We'll talk about Freud when we talk about Oedipus the King, because he takes his idea of the Oedipus complex.
Yeah, I was going to say Oedipus.
Right, he takes it from that Greek tragedy. So we'll talk more about him in a couple of weeks.
Oh, that'll be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just make this point. Psychoanalysis is a little different than modern psychology. Now, whenever you're doing straight out psychoanalysis, you're trying more to get towards the root of the problem. The idea of psychoanalysis is to make the patient aware of what their problem is, like what's causing these behavioral issues or depressions or something like that. If you're aware of it, you can correct it. That's the goal of psychoanalysis, of a Freudian psychoanalysis or something. Well, you guys all know modern psychology does a little bit more than that, right? Modern psychology accepts more that the brain and the chemicals that are going on in our brain, right? This causes different issues, right? People take medications. You don't just talk out your issues anymore. You have medications. So that's more of a modern approach to psychology. So oftentimes it'll depend on what type of doctor you go to. If you go to a straight up psychologist, they might be more interested in the chemical reactions going on in your brain. That's more of a medical thing, right? Whereas if you go to a psychoanalysis type doctor, you will talk more about your issues and work out your issues that way. So literature studies is more grounded in that old school type of psychology where you try to think through a character's issues and see what's going on with them. Do you guys think I represented the two approaches to psychology well here? You guys are the experts, not me.
No. Yeah, you did really good. I was wondering why we were taking this class actually, and now you pinpointed it out for me. So
very good, very good.
I was like, no, not another English class.
The last one is social, political, cultural studies. This is the one that this is how my brain works. I gravitate more towards this type of thing myself. So like whenever I offer you my perspectives in this class, it'll oftentimes be grounded in this approach. So sometimes if you guys are interested in these other approaches, this is how we all learn from each other, right? If you guys are all interested in these different approaches, this is more my thing, but some of you guys might have your own thing here. The social, cultural, political studies, oftentimes that's a historical examination of lit. So you might ask yourself, what's going on with the society at any given time historically? How does that shape the creation? How does whatever is happening at that time historically shape the creation of the art in some way? So like, for instance, whenever we talk about Lysistrata here in a couple of weeks, that play was written during a war between the Athenians and the Spartans. Well, how did that war maybe shape the creation of that text? So that's the type of questions that a social, political, cultural study asks. So if you're interested in history and things like that, history and literature blend together very well. And I kind of have a historical type of brain. So I told you guys before I majored in English and history when I was an undergrad. This is the one that I kind of gravitate to. So all of you guys have different types of minds, different interests. So you guys will all bring something to the table here. Okay. Before we end class today, I want to ask you guys, so I want to have a brief discussion. I want to ask you guys this question. How would some of you guys define the word literature? Like what makes a work literary? Right? Any of you guys have a thought on that? Like why do we say some things are literature? Why are some things not literature?
Would it be something that's kind of like timeless, maybe something that's, I don't know, that could be considered classic, like, or maybe original in story?
Yeah, that's you're definitely pinpointing a definition of it here, right? In a class like this, it's argued that something like the Iliad, right, is a timeless piece of art. It has ideas that are timeless. So it doesn't matter if you're reading this now or if you're reading it in 3500 AD, 1500 years from now, right? You know, the idea is it's a timeless piece of work that suggests that offers something about humanity.
Yeah, a lesson.
A lesson.
Yeah, like more detail.
Yeah, so that's great. You're definitely honed in on a definition already here as far as what makes a work literary.
It just all depends if it's like superior in like artistic, like, you know, artistically, I guess.
Right. Well, whenever you say that, artistic, that's a very subjective thing too, right? Some people might think that it's artistic. Some might think it's awful. Right. So how do we define what makes it artistic or not is another question. Oftentimes the complexity of a work is a tool that scholars use to measure this. So they argue that if the work is complex, maybe its ideas are complex, maybe if it's just hard to read, right? Maybe if it's just hard to understand, right? Oftentimes that's a tool that's used to measure whether a piece of work is good or not. So Shakespeare, for instance, he's kind of seen as the king of English lit. Well, you guys know Shakespeare by our modern standards isn't that easy to read. If if you really dive deep and dig into it, right, he's a very rewarding read, but he's not something that you pick up and read while you're in the bathroom, right? That's not bathroom reading. So complexity is something that's often valued. Ambiguity is something too that's often valued. Does the piece of literature give clear-cut answers to these questions? Right? Does a piece of work leave us with more questions? You guys might even see stuff like movies, right? Sometimes a movie doesn't have an ending that answers all the questions, right?
Yeah,
Like what?
like that suspense of what's going to happen next, and
right? Then boom, it's over, right?
yeah,
Leaves you asking questions.
yeah.
Oftentimes, a work that leaves you asking these questions, that type of thing is valued as far as like defining what makes good lit. It doesn't answer all the questions for you. It leaves you asking more.
That's how you know when another movie or sequence is going to come, because they can't just leave you like that.
Right. Yeah, and I teach the movie class as well. I oftentimes give movies that have these like really loose endings, and everybody's always like, "What the heck was that?"
You gotta think about it.
Yeah. So those are some qualities to focus in on. I often ask this question too, like, I teach the American Lit course too, where you read stuff like sermons, you read letters, you read all kinds of crazy stuff. It's not just poems and short stories or novels, right? So you can often ask yourself, well, does it have to be fictional in some way to be literature? Can something maybe that's historical be literature if it's written well, perhaps? Right? That's something to think about. We're going to read Aristotle in a couple of weeks. Aristotle is the one who kind of made the difference between literature and history. Right? He said this dry history book's not what you call literature, right? It's something else entirely. It's not that fun to read. Here's a question for you guys. If something is widely read, if something that has influenced their culture in some way, does that make it lit? Oftentimes like to ask this question: is Twilight literature, right? Millions of people have read Twilight, right? Would we classify that as literature? Or 50 Shades of Grey with its really awful sentences?
One day, I see that it could one day, like later on down the road, years from now, they'll probably be calling that a classic from our time.
Yeah, you never know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys want to see something funny on YouTube, get on YouTube and type Gilbert Gottfried and Twilight. He reads lines from it in his voice. It's really funny. Right.
Gilbert.
Yeah. You guys know Gilbert Gottfried. He's the parrot in Aladdin, right?
Crazy.
Right.
He's getting old.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll see this, like a work might be popular when it's written, but then it kind of fades into obscurity, right? Sometimes something that is popular doesn't survive through the decades or the centuries, right? Twilight might not be remembered 30 years from now, right?
I honestly believe that it won't, because right now everybody's into like the vampire theories and everything, and later on they might not be. So right now it could be considered a classic, but later on it might not be.
Right? Depends how it ages with the times. You know, there's some great works of literature that weren't called literature until well after the author was dead.
That's a lot of books.
Yeah, Herman Melville, who wrote Moby Dick. Of course, Moby Dick is almost the great American novel. Right? He wrote Moby Dick during his life in the 1850s when it first came out. It sold like 300 or 400 copies. He wrote arguably the greatest work of American lit, and only sold 300 or 400 copies when he first wrote it. Imagine how heartbreaking that would be for one to write something like that, and boom, 300 or 400 people buy your book. Moby Dick didn't become part. Some like scholar found Moby Dick in an old library and read it and was like, holy shit, right? And that's kind of like how Moby Dick came into being read again, well, after Melville's death. New works are being discovered every day.
And like you said, back in the day, women didn't have a right to speak. So that's why we have no women, or if they did, then they pretended to be a man so they could be published or something like that. So that's why it's so
Dead old men.
Yeah. Why it's dead old men.
Yeah, the women writers, right? Yeah, if you were living in 1850, women writers in America were actually the most read authors. Nathaniel Hawthorne called them the damned lot of scribbling women, right? Because they wrote stuff like romance novels and stuff like that sold a bunch of copies. Meanwhile, he writes the Scarlet Letter over here, and it doesn't sell that many books, right? So he gets pissy about it, right? So, but even we can blame English studies for this type of thing too, right? For a long time, English studies was dominated mostly by males. So, so a lot of these books that we're reading, well, that's men who picked them out, right? So even English studies today is changing because it's a much more diverse field now. You see stuff coming in from women, and like in American lit now we have Latino lit, right? We have Asian American lit. So literature is even becoming more diverse by the day, almost by the day, right? This is the type of class nationwide is actually fading out. There's not going to, I'd say 20 or 30 years from now, you might not even see a class like this anymore called Western World Lit, because a lot of scholars are actually taking objection to a class like this because it isn't a diverse class. It's mostly just the old dead white guys, right? So who knows what if this class will even exist 30 years from now.
We'll be taking another one of today's America.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of people who take objection to this idea of the classics, right? Because it isn't diverse, like we're talking about. It is, and my answer to that is it is and it isn't, right? Because it does. Some of these texts do have interesting attitudes about different groups of people. So it's up for us to bring almost a modern sensibility to looking at some of these old texts, dusting them off, so to speak.
It was what was going on at the time. So
Yeah, it's what developed into our time, like.
Okay.
So
Sometimes you see scholars who get so wrapped up in whatever the politics is of the day that they can't understand what the politics was 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes you run into that.
I think if anybody gets wrapped up in that one thing, then they can't broaden their spectrum on a higher level or whatever, on a different level.
Yeah, Huckleberry Finn is an example of that. You guys might know Huckleberry Finn uses the N word a lot.
Yeah,
The time.
yeah,
Depends on who your professor is today. Some professors don't even assign that anymore because it does say that.
hmm
So, and it doesn't even mean it. The book doesn't necessarily even mean it in that type of way, in a nasty way. It's more making fun of people who do say that word. But sometimes some teachers won't even go near that book. because of that.
know the definition of what that word means to begin with, and then maybe you could read a book that says that. But
It says it.
yeah, and people take it as the wrong way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the act. Even like if you're teaching that book, right? If you're reading from the book, do you read that word aloud? Right. That's a question that we have to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we can't assume if you're male or female, we have to ask.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah. You have to ask on a document if you see
Yeah.
her with long brown hair and a breast and everything. You still have to ask,
Yeah.
are you male or female? Are you white or African American? Are you,
Yeah.
you have to,
You can't assume.
no. And that's a big thing that we're learning now of how to do is, you know, you can't just assume somebody is something that you might think, because
yeah. You know what the word assume means, right? It makes an ass of you and me. Right?
Yes.
Well, so hopefully that spiel on reading lit and some of these questions about what makes lit and all that stuff, hopefully that's a good way to end on a first day as far as thinking about what you're getting ready to.
Answer Blackboard kind of along those lines. Or
What's that?
Is that how we answer Blackboard? Or will you give us an actual prompt to?
I'll give you prompts every week for.
Okay.
but have that in mind, like those studies that you have there.
Yeah, oftentimes the questions will be geared towards those studies in some way. Like I might ask a question that's kind of like a feminist way to ask the question.
Okay.
I might ask a question that's more of a historical question. Right? So,
Okay.
so you guys feel good? You guys feeling positive and energetic about the class after this?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not as worried. I'm definitely not as worried as they were leading on.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, we'll call it a night on that. We'll
I have
see.
a quick question before we close. I got on late, so I missed a couple of things.
Okay.
So we can either do a discussion or we can do this, right?
That's correct. On Thursdays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So and it'll be
Mondays, everybody does the discussion, but on Thursdays, you have your choice.
okay. So on Mondays, everybody has to do the Zoom call.
Or on Mondays, everybody has to do the discussion on Blackboard.
Okay. Okay.
Oh.
And then on Thursday, we can either do the discussion or we can do the Zoom call.
That's correct.
Okay. And then you said we'll have a prompt. Will we be reading, and then you'll ask us a question about the reading that we had went over?
For the Blackboard discussions, yes.
Okay. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
You're welcome. What's your last name, Jenna?
Barker.
Barker. Welcome to the class, Jenna.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else I can answer before we call it? All right. So I'll look forward to next week. We'll talk about Plato next Thursday. Okay. So I'm going to read that again tomorrow and get your questions up ahead of time. All right. So we'll see you guys then. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.